Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'll be sharing with you how to make these beautiful gum paste hellebores. In my opinion, these flowers are not exactly the most popular wedding flowers out there. I feel like they have been underused and underappreciated. Hellebores have such a unique shape and beautiful colors to it, and they adorn a cake so well. So in this two-part video, I'll be sharing with you guys how to make these gum paste hellebores and how to dust them so these flowers will come alive. Before we start, I just want to address something really quick. I know I started out this channel mainly focusing on wafer paper tutorials because that's what I've been doing a lot more in the recent years. But in fact, I've been making sugar flowers or gum paste flowers for the past 10 years. It's my first love and it's how I got into cake decorating. And up until today, I still love working with sugar flowers so much because it gives a completely different feel to what the wafer paper provides. I have followers ask me on Instagram recently if I have moved on to wafer paper, so I thought I'll address it here. I'm someone who can hardly keep myself to using just one medium. It's like a creative language and I don't just speak one, I speak many of them. For example, on the side, I paint, I sketch, I jaguar ink, I craft, and so much more. So all in all, I guess what I want to say is I don't want people to think that they have to stick to just one medium. Sometimes I choose to make a flower in gum paste and other times in wafer paper. It really depends on what I'm going for at that point in time. So for example, if I'm looking for a flower to be light and airy, then I'll go with wafer paper because wafer paper has the characteristics and it gives me just that. But if today I'm going for something with a bolder color, richer, solid tone, then I'll go with gum paste because gum paste provides me with exactly that. So you have to really understand what the medium provides you before you choose what medium you want to focus on or use. Please do not blindly just follow what people are doing on the internet just because it's trendy, or just because many people are using it. Well, those can be the reason, but you should not finalize a decision based on all those factors because ultimately it may or may not be something that you enjoy doing or making. So my advice is go ahead and try everything before you decide. At the end of the day, you don't have to be this or that. You can be in between. You know, just keep exploring. Go ahead and experience all of that and then decide for yourself based on your own experiences. Listening to your own voice and experiences is very important. So yes, thank you for listening, and I just needed to let that off my chest. And also because I just want people to have more autonomy in their decision making and not just follow blindly as to what the internet is providing or whatever is trendy at that point in time. So long story short, in 2023, you'll be seeing a lot more gum paste flower tutorials and random mindset talks like this. And for now, let's get started. Before we begin, let's go through the tools and materials we need for this class. First, we need a floral foam pad for us to stretch our petals. And we need some white wires. For colouring, I'm using MY Color Gel Paste Colouring. This doesn't add a lot of liquid to my gum paste, so it's perfect. And then we have some veneer for our flower petals, white floral tape, some teardrop shape cutters for our hellebore petals, a craft scissors, a rolling pin, a cell pin for us to stretch our petals, a skewer, and then we have our Crisco, which is our vegetable shortening, cornstarch in a cornstarch bag, and lastly we need our groove board to roll out our gum paste. All the information on these tools can be found in the link in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. Once you're ready, let's begin. So this is how our hellebore stamens look like. They may look complicated, but they're really not. So now let me walk you through step by step on how to make them. First, we'll start out with our 24 gauge white wire. We're going to trim it into 3 pieces using our wire plier. You will only need 1 wire for each flower, so this is enough for us to make 3 hellebores. Then what we're going to do next is to create a tiny little hook at the tip of our wire. So using one smooth motion, we're going to just turn it and create a closed hook. So this is how your hook looks like. Next, let's move on to our gum paste. Here I'm using my green colored gum paste, which is achieved by mixing emerald color, avocado, and chocolate brown. So emerald color avocado gives me the bulk of the green, And chocolate brown has a red undertone, so it helps to neutralize it. So if you do not know, green and red are actually complementary colors, so a little bit of red will help to neutralize most of the green. So just a tiny bit of chocolate brown and a lot more avocado. When you guys are mixing these colors, I recommend you guys to add the gel paste a little bit at a time so you can see how the color changes gradually. If you accidentally add too much gel paste, you might end up having to add in a lot more white gum paste to counter the color, which ends up, you might just be wasting your gum paste. So now we're just going to pull out a tiny bit from the ball of gum paste, just about this amount will do. I didn't weigh this out, so I'm usually just eyeball it, just a small pea size. So I need about 5 of this in total, but let me just show you how I do one. So my hands were a little bit sweaty, so I used the cornstarch bag to kind of like add some cornstarch onto it and start rolling out a little tiny ball. So if your hands are also a little bit sweaty like mine, you can also use just a tiny bit of cornstarch so it doesn't stick onto your hands. So this tiny little ball, and what we're going to do is I'm going to just roll out on one side and make sure it thins out exponentially. So you can see that it has a very big teardrop shape at the bottom, and towards the end it just thins out. And we want like a sharp tip as shown here. So this is just one. The size measures about, I would say maybe an inch or 2 centimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and make 5 of these in total. Okay, so I'm done with all 5 of them, and as you can see, they're not exactly the same, but that's totally fine. It's impossible to make them exactly the same. We just need them to look roughly similar. Here I have my hook, and what happens is these 5 little guys are going to surround this little hook, so they're gonna hug this little hook. And what I have here is my egg white, which will act as my edible glue. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint my egg whites just on these little guys, and then allow them to come together just next to each other. So I'm going to continue painting, and I'm going to assemble say about 4 of them together first. And this is how they look like. When you're putting them together, you want to make sure that you do not squish the bottom. So as you can see, the bottom part still remains pretty broad, and at the top it forms like a peak of a mountain. So you want to make sure that it stays this shape so that stamen can maintain this shape. And as you can see, the hook just goes in the middle. So right now, the last little guy, we can go ahead and put egg whites all in the inside, and then the last guy goes there. So I'm also starting to kind of curl it up to make sure that it allows the all these little guys to hug onto our hook. And I'm just going to place the hook in the middle and then slowly go ahead and close up these guys. As you're closing, try not to put so much pressure that it takes away the very, big bell bottom. So you still want that to stay that shape. So I'm really carefully just pushing them together and pinching them, but with very light pressure. So this is how it looks like at the bottom. And right now it's actually looking kind of loose because, they're not really hugging really tightly. And as you can see, it's still kind of wobbly. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab a tiny little ball of gum paste, which is the same color as what we had before, just about this tiny bit. And this little guy is going to act as like, a sealant at the bottom. So it actually helps to hold all of them together. So right there. So I'm just going to thread it through the wire. And then push it all the way up. So before I stick, I'm going to add some egg whites at the bottom. So you can see it's kind of wobbly right now, but this guy will act as something that holds them together. So slowly pinching it in, and always trying to make sure that I don't distort the shape that I had before. So a little bit pressure at a time. And you can see at the bottom part, I'm just kind of pinching it so it ends off like a nice V shape. So always take your time to just pinch until you get into the shape that you like. If you want, you can also use a Dresden tool to seal these two parts together. So you can see I'm just trying to stretch the gum paste so that they all combine well together. This is optional, not necessary, because I think the egg whites are strong enough. But just in case if you don't like the look of them being separated, you can go ahead and use this method. Okay, so right now this is done. You can see that after this is done, it's a lot more sturdier. It doesn't wobble like before. And next we'll be using our skewer to go in between these little guys and to curl them outwards. So this is a very unique feature of the Hellebore Stamens that I really love. So now the second one, you don't really have to curl them out or at the same degree or same way, but just curling it out. This way really makes it so unique. So for the last two, maybe I will not curl them out as much. I'll just leave it as it is. So when I turn it 360, you can see how they all look really different. Okay, now to the last step of the stamen, we're going to grab our tweezer. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a tiny little pinch on each of the little guys. So this is to create this extra texture, which I thought is very unique to the Hellebore Stamens as well. So go ahead, go around and pinch all of them. You can see it's such a simple technique, but it really creates a very unique look for the Hellebore Stamens. So with that, we're pretty much done with our Hellebore Stamens. And right now, I'm just going to set this guy aside to let it dry while we work on our Hellebore petals. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some white gum paste over here, and the two colors I'm using to mix this very nice muted pink is emerald color chocolate brown and emerald color avocado. So the same two colors I used for stamens, but this time in row reversal. So I'm using a lot more chocolate brown because it gives a very nice pink tone, and the avocado is a green that helps to neutralize my pink. So I'm going to start off with the color that I usually have the most of, so some chocolate brown. And you can see that I'm not using a lot actually, so just a tiny bit, this amount, yeah. And then I'm gonna start kneading the color into the gum paste using some shortening. So the use of shortening is to prevent it from sticking onto my hands and preventing it from drying out, because as you're kind of like mixing or kneading the color, it's constantly being exposed to the air. So having some shortening will keep it very nice and pliable even after you have done kneading. So you can see this very beautiful shade of pink. I found this by chance. That chocolate brown from emerald color gives me such a nice beautiful pink. And then right now I'm going to get in a little bit of my avocado to tone this pink down, because I don't want it to be so bright. So green helps to neutralize it. Basically, it cancels it out. So as I'm kneading, you can also start to see how the saturation of the pink is actually being taken away by the green. So maybe I'm just going to add a little bit more. So keeping true to what I say about color mixing, I'm always adding a little bit at a time. And then I'm just continue kneading. Okay, by now you can see it's a lot more obvious that the bulk of pink is being kind of like taken away, the saturation. So we are left with a very nice muted neutral pink. So I like to start off my Hellebore petals with this pink. And I think, yep, we're ready. And now we're ready to make our petals. Okay, what we have here is our groove board. So this is for us to roll our gum paste on it to create grooves for our petals, so it's easier to put in our wires. And right here I have my teardrop cutters. And usually for hellebores, I play between size 2 to size 3. So depending on the size of the hellebores you want to work with, you can choose between these two sizes. So today I'm going to go ahead with size 3. So with my ball of gum paste, I'm just going to roll and stretch it to make sure that it's soft and pliable. And then I'm going to flatten it and roll it over the grooves here. So that's how we create the grooves. So just go over it. And I'm going to grab my rolling pin and I'm just going to start rolling. I'm going to try to hit 3 or maybe 4 grooves. Since our gum paste is really stretchy, it's able to roll over 4 grooves. So you just want to roll it really thin, and you will know when to stop when you start to see all these little grooves. So if the grooves are popping out, you know that you are almost there. You don't want to go too thin as well because we're going to stretch it later on. So the moment you see these grooves, you know you are ready to stop. And right now we're going to peel our gum paste off from the groove board. I'm putting some cornstarch on my work surface to make sure my gum paste is not sticking. And just some on top. And then with my cutter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top of the groove, just like that. So it's going to go halfway through the cutter because that's how much the wire will go into the petal. And there's one petal over there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the rest of the petals. We'll need about 5 to 6 petals per hellebore, so I can cut out 4 here, and I'm going to roll it again and cut out the other 2. If you want to go ahead and cut extras, please do so because it never really harms to have extra petals on hand. Okay, so I have about 6 petals over here. I'm going to work on the petals one at a time. So while I'm working on one petal, I'm going to go ahead and keep the rest in like a nice Ziploc bag so they stay nice, soft and moist inside. Because gum paste tend to dry out when exposed to the air. So I'm just going to go ahead and stack them and then put them inside a Ziploc bag. So here I have my setup, my foam pad, my petal, my wire, and my edible glue is my egg white. So before we start shaping our petals, I just want to show you how the petals of the hellebore look like. So they're pretty much like a open rose petal, but the only difference is hellebore has this unique feature of like a V-shaped looking petal at the tip. So it almost resembles, just like a mountaintop, like a nice inverted V shape. So that's the shape they want to keep for hellebores. And because for teardrop shaped cutters, what we have is like a round top. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my craft scissors and trim like a nice inverted V shape. You don't have to be super exact, but just as long as they resemble an inverted V shape. Then right now I'm ready to stick my wire into the groove. So I'll go ahead and put some egg whites and slowly thread it through using my thumb as a guide above the petal. I'm going to slowly find my way in. So there you go. And then just a general rule of thumb, I always like to pinch the bottom whenever I insert a wire in. So right now I'm going to go ahead and grab my cell pin. And this is where we'll stretch our petal. The petal looks pretty flat right now, and by stretching it, we'll be able to give it more movement and make it come alive. When I'm stretching my petals, I always like to go from left to right to make sure I maintain the consistency of my pressure strength. And if I need, I'll go over a few more times to get it into the shape that I want. So I'm always slowly adjusting my pressure strength to fit into the final shape that I'm looking for. So this is usually how I stretch my petals. I like to go from a lighter pressure strength to a stronger pressure strength towards the edge of the petal. This allows me to have a very thin edge to the petal and make it look a lot more realistic. And now we're ready to vein our petal. So I just place my petal in the middle of the veiner and just give it a good press. Lift it up and you can see the beautiful veining on our petal. I really love the veiner. I don't think I can do without it. Okay, so this is the front and the back, you can see. So hellebore petals are usually pretty flat, but what you can do is something like what I'm doing here. You can just go ahead and pinch the center, make it almost like a spine of a book, and then you can also go ahead and pinch the top. So you can either leave it as it is, or you can just kind of curl it a little bit, curl it backwards or forward. And once you're ready, we'll take our egg mold, or if you do not have this, you can always grab a spoon, anything that allows the petal to stay the shape you want it to be. So we're just going to let it sit here, dry, and then now we'll work on our next petal. Okay, so onto our second petal, I've gone ahead to trim it, and now I'm going to show you a way that you can shape your petal in a different way, so all your petals do not look the same. So similarly, I'm just stretching it, always remembering that your pressure strength goes from a really light one to a really strong one as you move towards the edge of the petal. And always keeping in mind that as I stretch, I want to maintain this inverted V shape on top of the petal. So remember, the petal goes in any shape that you stretch it to be, so you have full control over it. So now I'm going to do the usual veining. And then lift it up. So you can see sometimes, wires might pop out like that because we've pressed too hard. What you can do is, while the gum paste is still soft, you can always just, stretch and bend the gum paste a little bit so that it covers up the wire. So this is the best part about gum paste, is that when it's soft and pliable, there's lots of things you still can do to it, like hiding a wire. So I'm also just folding down the center, give it a pinch at the top. And maybe this time I want one side of the petal to really just curl backwards, so I can just use my finger as a guide. And yep, this is the shape I want. So once I'm ready, I will then again take my mold and then let it dry. So this time maybe I'll flip it over, so once I really folds over and stay its shape. And now onto my third petal. So I've done the trimming, the stretching, and then now I'm veining the petal. Okay, so just a quick tip, if you want your petals to look a little bit broader than usual when you are pulling and stretching, you can go ahead and pull on both of these sides more, so the petal actually stretches out more horizontally. And you want to kind of always look for your petals to be in different shapes and sizes, so this is a great tip to have. So another thing you can do to your petal to make it look a little bit different is, sometimes we are looking for torn petals. A little bit imperfection is perfection. So you can go ahead and grab a skewer and then just do a tiny pull, and then you get all this very naturally torn look in our petals. So I like to do that for sometimes when I'm doing flowers that has a dried look, so it creates a very natural look for it. So I'm pinching, and hellebore petals generally has like a flat look, so what you can do is you can also just lay them flat, since you have all these details of like stretching and folding. So grab your mold, and instead of putting it in that little bowl, you can go ahead and leave it on a flat surface, or you can just bend your petals a little bit like that, so it creates a very nice little detail over there. And now I'll just let this dry. For my fourth petal, I've done it pretty similarly to the previous petal, so this is my fifth petal right here. So just doing the same thing, just pressing it down. By now you should know the drill. And I'm going to show you a new technique here. If you are going for a more ruffled look on your petal, this is a technique I like to do. So I will grab my skewer, place my petal at the edge of the foam pad, and then what I'm going to do is, let me show you from a different angle. So place my skewer, meeting the edge of the petal at a 45-degree angle, and as you press it down, you create all this nice ruffle look on your petals, because the pressure strength is only pressing on the edge of the petal right now. And I like to do this method for anything like sweet peas or whatnot. You can think about the same technique but on a different flower. So yeah, you don't have to do both sides. I'm just doing one side to just create some unique look for every single petal that I do. So you can do the usual pinching. You can even roll over if you want. So this part is completely up to you. Every flower doesn't have to look the same. So I'll probably roll over on one side and then let the ruffle stay as it is on the right side. And right now, similarly, I'm just going to let it dry. Okay, so here I have all 5 of my petals done. I'm just going to let it dry for at least an hour before I start attaching them. If you're in a really humid environment, I will recommend you guys to get a dehumidifier to help with the drying process. If you're making a lot of hellebores for your cakes, what you can do is you can do all the petals and stamen on day 1, let them dry overnight, and then when they're rock hard the next day, it'll be a lot easier to dust the colors on the petals and then to assemble them. So this also helps with the efficiency of creating petals, so you don't have to make them and then assemble them, make them and assemble them. You can do it in a more systematic way, and that also helps to build momentum when you're making a lot of flowers.
So that is it for part 1 of our gum paste hellebore tutorial. How was it like for you? Did you take home some extra tips? Remember to stay tuned to part 2 where I'll do a deep dive into dusting these flowers. I'll be sharing with you the colors that I use, the techniques that I use. They are very universal and can be applied to many other flowers that you're making. That is all coming up in part 2 of this video, so don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on notifications so you won't miss out when the video comes out. See you in part 2.